Hi everyone, we're back. Today we're going to be speaking about Sultan Suleyman once again, and we're going to be finishing up our discussion of him by looking at why the Ottomans thought that they were the best in the world. And this is by a figure named Talikizade, writing around 1593. He was a court historian. He wrote kind of the histories of Suleiman and his successors. And so he had a lot of time to think about what it is that made the Ottomans special and what it is that Suleiman brought about that hadn't been done before. Now remember, as we've been talking, Suleiman is often associated with the classical period. Now, whether or not he's really classical or not, or things were really that great in his time, doesn't matter. But in the minds of the people who narrativized this period, people like Talikizade, he had created a classical order in which everything else was a deviation from that. Now keep that in mind because it's going to get important when we talk about ideas about decline in the next period. So for them, the period of Suleiman is like the period of FDR for Americans, some Americans, or maybe the 1950s and 60s for others, in which, everything was right and nothing had gone wrong. Now we're going to look at why it is that the Ottomans, one Ottoman historian writing in 1593, thought that the Ottomans are great. Now, of course, he's representing a dynastic voice, but I think it's important to understand what they thought made them special. So, without further ado, let's commence. Number one, their unwavering adherence to Sunni Islam and the Hanafi legal school. So it's interesting that the very first thing that they mention is the fact that unlike empires to the south and east, that is the Safavids, who were technically at this point kind of messianic Muslims, who still had a strong aspect of messianism to their shahs, who apparently claimed that they were gods, or at least that's what the story was. The Ottomans were very strict Sunni Muslims and stuck to a Hanafi legal school, and also was different from the Mughals, who were still experimenting with messianic forms of leadership. And so it's interesting that the very first thing that they emphasize is their clear religious identity, which 100 years beforehand wouldn't have been so essential, right? They hadn't undergone this confessionalization process. Number two, the inclusion of Mecca and Medina in their empire, which justified the title servants of the two noble sanctuaries and required all Muslims on earth to obey their rule. Now, servants of the two noble sanctuaries, the Haramain, that is Mecca and Medina, the two holy cities of Islam, is probably the most prestigious title that the Ottomans possessed, right? So when they would write a letter or have a letter addressed to them, someone would list all their titles, and the most important ones usually are this one, the custodian of the two noble sanctuaries. Again, it goes to point out just how much this new role of them as kind of guardians of Sunni Islam, guardians of Islam, meant to them and to their own legitimacy at this period, very different from the frontier era. Okay. And also the idea that this is what made them more special than other Muslim kings, and that therefore they also had deserved some obedience, or at least respect, from all Muslims on earth. Number three, their continual dynastic growth through a progression of son over father and an unbroken line of patrimonial succession, with each adding a land to their inherited domains. So this goes back to the fact that they're a dynasty, right? They're not a dynasty that kind of had a point in which a distant uncle takes over or something weird happens. Basically, for the past 200 years, it's always been father, son, father, son, father, son. Now, one reason why that is their specific form of succession politics, right? When they keep the empire together, any son can be an heir, but they have to fight each other to see who wins, and then that winner takes the whole empire. And that allows them to claim, again, that they are a more robust or better dynasty, and as they point out, that they are kind of continuously expanding territorially. Number four, their title Sultan of Land and Sea, especially bolstered by conquests in the Mediterranean that transformed their state into a seaborne empire. So again, that they now are fighting They have a giant navy. They're fighting in the Mediterranean. They're fighting to a lesser degree in the Indian Ocean, while conducting campaigns against Hungary or, for example, in Egypt. Really, they're kind of combining these two in a real way. It just shows the geographic scope of their conquests. Number 5, emphasis on maintaining a strong standing army. No other contemporary dynasty in the Islamic Eastern Europe had 80,000 ghouls paid full-time by the state treasury, in addition to provincial fief holders. So again, they're just saying we have a really big army. Ghouls are, remember, the slaves, most of them, again, janissaries. At this point, you can see just how many people are included in the army. 80,000 people are being paid a wage, and we'll see soon that this would actually cause a lot of stress on the treasury. And then they also have one of the traditional parts of the army, which is the timar holders, that is people who were given a plot of land to collect taxes from and in return brought soldiers on campaign. Number 6, the unequaled prestige of Istanbul as the exalted sultanate capital. No other city could claim its fame and its location, its confluence of the two seas, where ships from the east and the west continuously loaded and unloaded merchandise. So it's interesting, by now Istanbul has become celebrated as the capital, a place that they're very proud of, whereas initially after the conquest of Constantinople, many, especially frontier warriors, wanted to avoid Constantinople from becoming the capital. Number 7, the territorial extent of the empire encompassing the 7 climes in which the Ottoman khutbah was pronounced in Friday mosques. Yemen in the first climb, Mecca in the second, followed by Cairo, Aleppo, Istanbul, Kaffa, and Buda. Now, this is again all about kind of geographic expanse, so saying, look how big we are. And this goes back to the idea of the climes, which is how many medieval and early modern people understood the structure of the world and the impact of climate on human behavior. The best place in the world was kind of in the middle, in the 3rd and 4th climes, where Istanbul was number 5. Climate was mild, it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. Everything in moderation is always better. And this is a place where the best and smartest civilization occurs. But on the other edges, basically very far south, deep in Africa or deep south of India, or as they pointed out in Yemen, it got very hot, people became darker, and their metabolism slowed down because of that. And at the very top, in places like Buda, it was very cold. People became very fierce and angry and aggressive because of that, and paler. But the whole point is that they kind of have something from between climes 1 to 7. Number 8, the prosperity and riches of the subjects and their imperial domains. No other Muslim state possessed such a fertile country with uninterrupted prosperous lands and abundance of pious foundations. This is interesting that they're basically pointing out the fact that actually the people themselves are doing well. There's a lot of wealth in the lands themselves. Now, whether this is true or not, but this is their claim. Number 9, a diverse collection of communities living peacefully under a multi-confessional empire. No other sultanate possessed a capital assembling such a variety of religions and races. This is quite, again, an interesting change. The fact that they point out that they have such a broad variety of people in there, both Christians, Jews, Muslims, everyone under the reign of the Ottomans. Number 10, the bravery of the Ottoman dynasty. Self-evident, I think. Number 11, their poetic talent. And in fact, the sultans, actually some of them composed poetry with different pen names. So they had actually the capacity to do so, which was often seen as the highest type of intellectual achievement and cultural achievement. Number 12, they're not having sought refuge in the court of another ruler. Basically the fact that they never had to flee and ask for help from others. And this is a dig at their competitors to the south. The Mughal emperor at the time, Humayun, actually had to run away from a rebellion and basically seek shelter in Iran, in Safavid Iran, under the court of Shah Tahmasp. And so they're kind of just making fun of them. Number 13, their moral purity. Okay. Number 14, their miraculous immunity from the plague or other illnesses of the common people. Interesting. I never thought of this as a cause to celebrate, but it seems to be true that no Ottoman Sultan died from plague. Number 15, their noble ancestry going back to the Turkic ruler Oğuz Khan, with each Khan being the son of a Khan, unlike some earlier dynasties that appeared lowly in the eyes of notables because they did not boast distinguished lineages. So what they're saying here is, interestingly, they're going back to some of the older legitimation things here. They're pointing out that these guys are Turkic leaders, that they're nobles from the very beginning, and that they deserve to be recognized for that inherent nobility, whereas other groups, basically, for example, post-Abbasid groups in the medieval period, didn't have that lineage. Number 16, the adherence to the noble Sharia. In no other Islamic dynasty has the luminous Sharia been honored to such a degree, along with the respect paid to the ulama or scholars after Mehmed II's establishment of a centralized system of state-sponsored madrasas. And this goes back to the idea, of course, that they are centered, their legitimacy really centers on the Sharia, on Islamic law and being Muslim in a way that other Muslim empires don't have, because they have a different form of Islam centered more commonly seen centered on saint worship and Sufi forms of ritual. Number 17, their unmatched breeding and dignified gravity, as well as their resistance to oppressing subjects. Basically, they're very serious looking and they don't oppress people. Number 18, their maintenance of a full treasury, unlike the example of the Safavid ruler Shah Ismail, who merely left behind 60,000 aspers when he died. So for now, they don't have any financial problems, unlike the United States today, but as we'll see, the Ottomans would soon have financial problems as well. Number 19, their absolute power and ability to enforce imperial laws, even in remote areas, simply by sending written decrees bearing their monogram, in contrast to the Safavid Shahs and Doges of Venice, who were subject to the control of prominent patricians. And this is interesting, that the fact that they have they're not bound by other nobles or people, that they don't have to consult with anyone, and that they actually have power. Whether this is true or not, which it isn't really, I think it shows you the kind of ambitions of governments at that time. Number 20, their respect for individual property and the right of even a simple villager in Ottoman lands to accumulate money without any interference, unlike in the domains of the Safavid Shahs, who greedily and unjustly appropriate the income of the subject. Again, another dig at the Safavids, another insult here. But the idea here is that everyone has the right to justice, and there should be justice in the land, and no one should stop individuals from prospering within their particular space. So that's 20 reasons why the Ottomans thought they were the best in the world by the historian Talikizade. Keep those in mind. I think it shows us a snapshot where we are in the end of Suleyman's reign, how the Ottomans thought that they were at the top of the world and the best in the world, and what it is that made them special.